Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking from indie film to studio films to high-end TV to documentaries, commercials and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to royally F them up, in our very, very humble opinion. I am Giles Alderson. I'm a writer and director, and this is the Filmmakers Podcast, a place where we talk to the world's most dynamic directors and actors about how they get their films made. And this week, we have an absolute heavyweight episode for you. We're diving deep into history with the new psychological thriller Nuremberg. So joining Dom Lenoir are the film's writer and director, James Vanderbilt, and the incredible Oscar-nominated actor, Michael Shannon. They'll reveal the 13-year fight to bring the story of the infamous Nazi trials to the screen, the craft behind playing the unflinching US Chief Prosecutor, and the moral weight of balancing entertainment with historical trauma. This is a powerful, unmissable conversation about truth, justice, and the very nature of evil. So some of the credits of these incredible pair we have on, just in case you don't know. First up, Dom sits down with James Vanderbilt, who wrote Zodiac, The Amazing Spider-Man, and White House Down. That's three incredibly different films, but incredible films all the same. And he previously directed the movie Truth. It was his directorial debut, which he wrote, produced, and directed, and it starred Cate Blanchett and Robert Redford. And then not long after that interview, I mean pretty much straight away, will be Michael Shannon. Now Michael Shannon is an incredible actor, one of Dom's favourites. Some of his credits include, wow, list is incredible. He was in Groundhog Day. Yep, it was originally in Groundhog Day, Revolutionary Road, Broadwalk Empire, Take Shelter, The Iceman, Man of Steel, where he's played General Zod, Elvis and Nixon, played Elvis Presley, Nocturnal Animals, The Shape of Water, that was an Academy award-winning feature film there from Guillermo del Toro. Knives Out, very recently, Bullet Train, George and Tammy, the excellent TV series, and The Flash, where he came back as General Zod, reprised his role. And now he's starring as Robert H. Jackson in Nuremberg, which is based on the 2013 non-fiction book, The Nazi and the Psychiatrist. And the film chronicles the psychological duel between the US Army psychiatrist, Colonel Douglas Kelly, which was played by Rami Malek, and Adolf Hitler's second-in-command, Hermann Goering, which is played by Russell Crowe, as Kelly evaluates the Nazi officers' official mental fitness before the trials. Michael Shannon plays Robert H. Jackson, who's the American Supreme Court Justice who served as the Chief Prosecutor for the United States at the Nuremberg trials. So, this is Dom Lenoir chatting to the director, James Vanderbilt, and straight after that will be the brilliant actor, Michael Shannon. I'll see you the other side, and I'll be back in the UK next Tuesday, so hopefully I'll be back on some of the recordings very soon. In the meantime, I am pretty much locking picture very soon. Director's cut now on Samadiva. I'll be back to do a couple of additional shots on the film, and then we'll be moving into post and VFX and all that goodness. And then I'll be in Scotland, finishing off sessions as well, which is super exciting time. So I hope you're doing well. I hope everything's moving forward with you and your films, and you're keeping the demons away. And you're working hard and finding the right people to communicate and work well with, because that's what it's all about. So I hope you're inspired. I hope you keep feeling inspired even through the hard times and the darkness and the depression that this industry can give us. And even if you are, you're going to turn the corner soon. It will happen. Right. For now, though, here is this week's Filmmakers Podcast. Enjoy.
So, I'm Dom, and I'm Conor. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
So we're the Filmmakers Podcast, so we can go into all that wonderful filmmaking and process and all that kind of things. But as we started with film festivals, let's just sort of kick off with that.
Sure.
You had the film in Toronto, which is a lovely festival. You're here for the BFI. I mean, let's just talk about how you sort of navigate festivals. Are you just here for screenings? Do you like to sort of network as well? Like, what's your sort of mindset around that?
I mean, one of the wonderful but difficult things about having a film in a festival is you don't really get to see the other films at the festival because they keep you on the train and they keep you sort of showing stuff and doing interviews and like that. So it's the best moments are when you run into other filmmakers or you run into other actors who you're fans of and get to enjoy their work.
Yeah, for sure.
So, James, I wanted to dive right in. You're a writer, a director, a producer, and your body of work is so eclectic. I couldn't pin you down. It's just you've done everything from horror, you've done Spider-Man, Zodiac. What drew you to this project? What was it about it that made you think this is the next one?
I mean, it was a bunch of different things, but it really started with Jack L. High's book. 13 years ago, I knew Jack from another project, and so he sent me this book proposal for this book he was writing called The Nazi and the Psychiatrist. And it was only 5 or 6 pages, and it's the fastest I said yes to anything in my life. It was just so incredibly compelling and told the story of Doug Kelly, who was a U.S. Army psychiatrist, Rami Malek's character, who at the end of World War II thinks he's going home, but instead receives orders to go to Morndorf and arrives at the Grand Hotel there and is told, upstairs we have the entire Nazi surviving high command, and you've been brought in to see if they're fit to stand trial. And it's the story of him and Russell Crowe's character, Hermann Goering, who is Hitler's second in command and is, the de facto leader of the Nazi party now, and the relationship they struck up. And again, it was 5 or 6 pages, but it was so compelling. And it was a story I thought I knew a lot about. I thought I knew something about the Nuremberg trials because I, studied it in high school, and quickly learned there was so much I didn't know.
So what's the process in terms of like setting the tone, how you wanted to approach this story? Because obviously, as you said, like it's a very big deal. It's like such a climactic sort of moment at the end of the war.
Yeah.
And there's so much at stake in both what happened and telling the story. And I think you navigate the tone really in a really fascinating way. It starts off very light. And then it obviously goes into something like a lot more psychological. And then obviously you go into some really deep drama sort of later on when we sort of hit the crux of what this is all about. But I'd love to sort of know how you sort of initially formed that tone and, how to open the movie and how to sort of start this whole story and your sort of vision.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it started with the research too. It's sort of I really wanted to immerse myself in the time, and so I just did a lot of reading and found out about Michael Shannon's character, who's the US prosecutor, who says, that there had been a standing order from Churchill and Roosevelt that these men were supposed to be executed within 48 hours of capture, and Jackson, who's a Supreme Court justice, said, "No, we can't do that. We have to put these men on trial." And so the story kind of grew and grew and grew, and once I realized the story was going to be so big, I had to figure out sort of how to get into it and how to tell it. And I knew that we were going through a very serious place. I mean, there are huge stakes to this movie, but also just huge stakes in terms of what it meant to the world and the fact that this is a true story. And so I knew that there was going to be some really dark stuff down the pike. And so I sort of felt like I wanted to start lighter, and I wanted to make you meet these characters and introduce them in a way that you immediately grew to like them and to care about them. And then some of my favorite, dramas have comedy in them. I mean, Goodfellas is hysterical. The Godfather is very funny. Leave the gun, take the cannoli. So it's sort of, there's humor in Schindler's List. I mean, it's. I always find, and the other thing is, I do feel that that's real in the sense of the way we deal with dark stuff in our lives is through humor, is through making bad jokes or asides or something to let the air out of the balloon. And I felt that obviously when you're dealing with something like as dark as this movie gets, you need a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, let's just start with that first opening scene, because it's really hard to open a film in an interesting, engaging way. You're trying to set what your sort of vision is. You're trying to introduce the characters. You're trying to be interesting. And I feel like it really does a great job of A, cinematically introducing the movie, and B, just sort of working into the privilege of the SS officers and, the spitting and the,
urination.
The urination.
Yeah. Just
you can say it.
Yeah, urination. Yeah, we're not a PG-13 podcast. But that whole it introduces so much about the mindset of what the film's going to be. Can you talk about how important those sort of first couple of pages are in terms of how you're going to shoot the movie and the tone you're going to set in that sort of production sense?
Yeah, well, it was a few different things. It was deciding sort of where to open the movie and what the guardrails were. I knew it was a sort of a very big story, and you only have a certain amount of time, obviously, to tell a story. So I went, okay, what's the first thing that has to happen? How late into the movie can I come? And I came to the conclusion that it had to be the day that Goering surrendered. That's sort of your inciting incident. And so he did it in Austria, and he did it the way we show it in the movie, and he did ask for the soldiers he surrendered to take his luggage, which I just thought was such an amazing. I mean, it says so much about the privilege that he believed he should be afforded as a Reich Marshal, even to from the soldiers of the opposing army. And so I thought, well, that's a really interesting way to sort of set the tone and explain who he is as a character. And I always knew there were going to be refugees in the scene, and I knew that we sort of wanted to start wide and then crane down. But it wasn't until on the day I sort of was in the car on the way to the set, and I'd had a bunch of different opening images in my head. But I got to set, and I went to our production designer, Eve Stewart, and I said, can you get me a swastika? Can you get me a piece of, because we had all of this broken metal and detritus. I said, can you put a swastika in something, and can you rig a soldier to be able to urinate? Because the shot starts up here and goes down, and you land on the swastika, and then a stream of urine hits it. If you ever want to make
it's a device.
It's a device.
Yeah.
Thank you. I did not have
not a stunt urinator.
No, it's not a stunt urinator. Our actor didn't have to. You don't want to go again.
Yeah.
But it was. And I just sort of felt like it was the right way to sort of start the film. It's sort of, it's the end of it. And it also it's the end of the Nazi regime. It's in tatters and ashes and being pissed on.
Yeah.
I had a question actually about exposition, because Dom and I both write. Lots of our listeners at home, they're writers as well.
Yeah.
You managed to handle a lot of exposition. A lot of people are coming into this story, they don't know that much about it.
Yeah.
But it never felt like we were being spoon-fed the information. Yet I felt like I was learning about the Nuremberg trials and everything else that went on in that time period. Do you have any advice about how to handle that when writing the screenplay?
Thank you. Yeah, I always feel like exposition gets a bad rap. As a writer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think if it's interesting and is not just important to your story, but important to the characters, then it can be, wonderful. I mean, I think one of the great things about movies is we get to learn about things. It's like, I watch Crimson Tide and I learn how a nuclear submarine works. That's really interesting to me. And so I always sort of feel like it's the more you can be, and you want to be as sparing with it as possible. You don't want to overwhelm people. But if it is just hey, what am I doing here? Okay, here are your orders. Here's what you have to do. It's sort of, I think Chris McQuarrie says, you have to eat your vegetables at the beginning of the movie in order to get dessert at the end. And so it's a necessary part of it. But if you can do it with, I think, some humor as well is really important. It can take the curse off it a little bit.
That's
if you enjoy what you're hearing and, there's wit to it, I think that's incredibly helpful with exposition.
Yeah, I suppose that's it. It can't be basic. It can't be boring. And
right.
It can't be generic. You have to sort of find clever ways to sort of hide it.
It's also, this is going to sound like such a basic screenwriting thing, but it's one character can know, but the other character can't. You know what I mean? It's sort of the worst exposition scenes, I think, are the ones that sort of start with, as we both know. This is a big case. But if one person doesn't know that and is being told these things, they're learning. If your main character and the audience are learning at the same rate at the same time most of the time, it's really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just talk a little bit about the shift, because that was one of the bits I really enjoyed, was how it sort of starts off. Rami's very interested in his character very early on, and there's a very noticeable shift sort of as we get towards the courtroom. And suddenly it's like, okay, no, we're going to really show how bad these guys are. And the shift sort of happens for everyone in the story as well.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like a very well handled moment, but it'd just be interesting to sort of know, like, what was did you always have that sort of plotted out? Okay, we're going to slowly go towards this. These are some of the key moments for flipping away from this being a sort of, cat and mouse psychology thing into like, okay, this is what we've got to cover as a topic and we've got to really show people why it's important.
Yeah, I'm a big structure guy. So I really work hard to make sure that I know what the structure is before I sort of go in. And with this, I always knew that I wanted to show the films from the camps. And I also knew that once you show the films from the camps, it's a real gear shift for the film, just as it was for the characters. So it's putting your main character and the audience in the seat of your main character and following him through. And so for Rami's character, once he sees that, it's a real shift with his relationship with Goering. And I think for the audience, it's a real shift with Goering. And so a lot of it was to try and, Goering was such a charming man and a funny man, and someone once described him as the best dinner party guest you'll ever have. So there needed to be that seduction both for Kelly and for the audience of this man kind of pulling you in a little bit and seducing you a little bit. And then Kelly is a magician, so I tried to structure the movie a little bit like a magic trick. And once that turn happens and you show what really happened, the trick comes off. The mask falls, and they see each other for who they really are.
You had a good point on the cyanide pill, didn't you?
Yeah, what was it?
The magic trick side.
Magic trick. Yeah. No, I love the way you foreshadowed it. There was something also, without spoilers for our listeners at home, but there was something in the mirroring that happens towards the end as well.
Yes,
I just found that. I didn't know that because I haven't read the book, and I found that fascinating as well for Kelly to go through the same thing as.
Yes, no, absolutely, and that was one of the things that without spoiling it, drew me to it initially, is the duality of both of their lives and how their lives, mirrored each other going forward after their encounter, was certainly shocking and was one of the things that made me go, oh, I really want to tell this story.
And there was something in that toxic ambition, as well. Like, it's just the way that Rami's character was just focused on his goal, and he was sort of blinded a little bit initially about everything else going on. He wasn't thinking about the whole context. He was thinking a lot about himself and his book and what's going to come out of it for him. And I think that was quite interesting to see from his point of view. I also wanted to point out the transitions. I just have to say, you did some amazing transitions where you created comedy in that space. Was that something that's created in the edit, or is that something that's on the page?
I think it's a mixture of both of them. I mean, our Tom Eagles is an incredible editor, our wonderful editor who cut Jojo Rabbit and a lot of Taika Waititi stuff. And one of the reasons I wanted to use him was I knew that the drama was there and that he could do that, but I wanted somebody who also was able to handle a little bit of a lighter touch. And obviously these two films are very different tonally, but someone who kind of could handle that sort of that snappiness and that quickness. And so some of the transitions, he found in the edit, dropping a cigarette and then a man stepping into a puddle. Others were scripted. The cut to the Vatican with the music sort of playing, that was scripted. So it's sort of exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, that was definitely a classic. One of the other scenes we absolutely loved, well, I suppose it's two scenes and it's a sort of mini arc, isn't it, is the Leo's character and just going from that monologue about what he's going to tell him at the end, and then the shirt scene. I mean, can we maybe talk about the shirt scene? Because that's like just one of the highlights of the movie for me. His sort of compassion and, what were the conversations maybe about the scene, either in advance or on the day of, between all those actors and sort of getting that to be what it was?
I mean, I'm trying to recall it because we spoke about it, but we didn't talk about it too much. Leo is just a wonderful actor and he's incredibly instinctual. And he, he's a young actor. It's the higher degree of difficulty that you would think that, I would be incredibly intimidated to be in a cell with two guys who have Academy Awards for Best Actor. And he loved them and they loved him, but he just came in and both Rami and Russell were just like, after the first day, they're like, who is this? You know, I mean, they knew of him, but they were so sort of blown away by how natural he was. So by the time we got to that scene, which is one of the last scenes that he shot, and Dieter, the other actor in there, is incredible too, the German actor. You know, we just blocked it and you know, and then did it a few times, and you could see on Leo's face, you know, everything you needed to, and you could see on Dieter's face, I think, everything you needed to. So it was, you know, Leo and I would sort of constantly talk about, and it was his phrase, not over egging it, you know, not pushing it, you know, into the realm of melodrama, and I think so much of his performance is less is more, because he's so powerful with doing just a little, you know.
Do you have any tips for, like, we talked a little bit about the pressure of working with actors at that level,
sure,
in a scene. Do you have any tips for maybe not now, because you're probably pretty established, but like working with big actors for the first time, you know, whether to give them notes, you know, those kinds of things?
I think so much of it's preparation. For years as a writer, I was nervous about the idea of directing, and one of the reasons was I was a little nervous about what the relationship would be with actors. And then the first film I directed, I kind of was thrown into the deep end of the pool because it was Cate Blanchett and Robert Redford. So I sort of had to go, oh, okay, I'm going to work with big actors. But it was a gift, because what I learned from them and from this cast as well is, first of all, actors love to act. They are trying to please you. They are trying to be good. And so much of my relationship with them comes from preparation, from having conversations. You know, one of the first things I like to ask is, how do you like to work? You know, do you want to talk through the scenes? Do you want to sit with me? Do you want to read them? Do you want to just take the script and go away? You know, and then we can have a conversation about it. And then, you know, it's the time you get to spend with them, the dinners you have, going out for drinks, you know, sitting in a hotel lobby, just sort of that time to kind of explore it and talk it through. And then, you know, on the day, just be honest. You know, I also will say, let them do the first take or two, and just let them go where they're trying to go. Even if you think they're on the wrong track, just sort of let them try going where they want to go, because overwhelming them with, you know, 17 notes and and I also think try and give 1 or 2 notes each time, you know, if you need to, by the way.
Not 5 or 10.
No,
yes.
But it's also, you know, sort of being able to go in and say, I love what you're doing, keep going down that road, you know, is a perfectly legitimate note to give, and let them explore it. Because I always sort of feel like, for me, the best, you know, I have the version in my head of the scene that, you know, I can hear it, but I also think that's, if that's all we achieve on the day, we've failed, because when you have great actors, especially at this level, you want their brain, you want their instincts, even if you think their instinct at first is crazy.
Yeah.
The easiest thing you can say to an actor is try it. Yeah. And the hardest thing you can say to an actor is no. Sometimes you have to say no. But sometimes you do 4 or 5 takes and you don't feel like you have it, but they've been able to explore what they want to. And then you can say, hey, do me a favor. Just, can you try one where it's a little more like this, you know, just for safety. And they'll do it.
Amazing. We've got time for one more quick question.
I'll just dive into that a little bit more, because I think it'd be really useful for our directors at home. So say you've got Russell, you've got Rami, they're in a cell, they're having this two-hander.
Yeah.
Are you keeping them apart to sort of give any sort of notes, going over to Rami, giving him a little something to explore, but not letting Russell hear? Or are you just being completely open that they're all hearing it?
I try and it's not to not have the other actor hear, but it's for each actor, for them to be able to feel like they can have a private conversation with me. So it's not, right. I'm not trying to, hey, surprise them with this. And you know what I mean? But it's more being able to, if they have concerns with their performance or with the other actor's performance, being able to, and that doesn't mean I'm going to walk them away or be sort of secretive, especially in there, but I'll just sort of lean down and sort of say, hey, maybe try this, and, you know, and then go over to Russell and he's going to maybe try this. So just, you know, so it's more that, and trying to respect the actors and their being able to have a personal dialogue with you than it is anything else. I'm going to give one more piece of advice, because this is the best piece of advice I ever got as a director from a guy named Dean Paris. So every morning, as much as you can, go see the actors either in their trailer or in the makeup trailer, just to have a moment with them before they get on set. So you can say, here's what we're doing today. Is there anything you want to talk about? Do you have any questions? So that they have a moment and a space where if they're freaking out about something or if they're confused about something, they don't have to have that first conversation with you in front of 100 people.
Amazing.
That's brilliant advice.
Amazing advice to end on. Thank you, James.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
Lovely. So, Michael, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the Filmmakers Podcast.
Thanks,
I'm Dom.
Tom.
I'm Connor.
Connor.
Happy to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So we kind of talk about filmmaking and the process, and we kind of love to dive into all the juicy bits.
Okay.
But it would be, just to start off with, I first came across your work in Boardwalk Empire, one of my favorite shows of all time.
Thank you.
Jeff Nichols' work, Mud, Take Shelter, so many great characters that you've created over the years, and Nuremberg as well. Can we just, before we get into the deep dive in Nuremberg, talk about maybe what attracts you or doesn't attract you into what you're looking for when you're looking at scripts and things that are sort of pitched to you?
I'm really drawn to scripts that seem original. I don't like doing stuff that seems like it's already been made, because why make more things that are like other things? You have so many films already. So, I like to make things that seem unique.
Not generic stuff, basically.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of, people rely on formulas a lot in this business because this is a business that's largely propelled by fear and anxiety and wanting to make money. So, when something works, they just beat it to death. So, I prefer not to do that.
Yeah. So if you could talk a little bit about, on that note, what you're looking for in the character themselves, for example, Robert Kelly, is there something in a role that really attracts you, a common thread?
Gosh. I've played so many different people, so it's hard to say what they all have in common. I like green and I like orange, and I guess what do they have in common? Yellow. I don't know.
It doesn't have to be in common, but what's something you're looking for in a role that gets you invested? I imagine you get a lot of scripts coming your way, and you're going to have to say no to a lot.
Yeah, well, it's hard. I guess I'd have to take it on a case-by-case basis. But, I like to play people that are complicated and that are a bit of a puzzle, because that gives me something to think about when I'm working, But in this instance, with Robert Jackson, I was just in awe of what he did, and I like working on projects that are historical projects because when I was in school, I wasn't the best student, so I didn't learn as much about history as I probably should have. And now I actually really enjoy working on these projects and learning about things I would have known nothing about otherwise.
So what were your first sort of conversations with James after you'd maybe read the script and decided this was an interesting character? There's plenty of area for you to explore there. Like what was that initial conversation? Because it's always quite important to sort of feel out the director and what they're trying to do, and maybe just getting a sense of each other, I guess.
Well, James and I hit it off right away. I didn't really have any trepidation about him. I did think it was a very ambitious script. It's based on a book called The Nazi and the Psychiatrist, and I thought, well, gee, that's enough of a story in and of itself. You could easily just stay in the cell with Goering and Kelly the whole time, and then, Jackson actually isn't in the book hardly at all. So I thought, wow, this is going to be a lot to try and merge these two stories. But I thought he was pretty agile in the way he structured it, and he assured me that he'd make the space in the room to fit it all in there, and it seems like he did.
So I wanted to ask a little bit actually about the research you mentioned, because a lot of our listeners are actually actors as well.
Okay.
So they'll be fascinated to know your process. For example, with research, how far do you go? You're playing a certain position maybe you've never done before. It's a historical time frame. There's a lot you could research and try and understand, almost too much. So how do you strike that balance?
Oh gosh, I really just focused on him, on Jackson, on learning as much as I could about him. It's an interesting point. I didn't study as much about the specific history of that period outside of it, how it pertained to him, because that could be an endless pursuit. I mean, there's so much going on, and
yes,
so I tried to stay focused. Even in Jackson's own life, this is just one sliver of what he accomplished and what he was a part of. So I really tried to stay focused on this particular event, because this event is enough for anybody to try and contemplate.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask as well, Dom. So when it comes to playing a real life character, do you approach that differently? Do you try and find an essence? Are you looking at the physicality? What's your way into playing a real person?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm not trying to impersonate Jackson. It even in that subset of real life characters, there are different departments. There's when you're attempting to play Elvis Presley is very different than when you're playing Robert Jackson, because I don't think many people honestly know who Robert Jackson is, and so it was more about trying to capture his spirit. I wasn't trying to emulate his voice or necessarily even resemble him in any way. Yeah.
So talking a little bit about the psychology, because I think all your characters, they've got so much going on in their mind and their behaviors. And I think something you do really well is when you sometimes struggle or you falter, there's a moment in the end kind of court scene where your character sort of has this moment where he's not, receives a blow, I suppose, when Goering's sort of fighting back against him. Was that something that you'd always sort of planned for that scene into his sort of behavioral roadmap, or was that something you kind of found on the day? It'd be nice to sort of know how you sort of approached that scene and that sort of culmination of his character, I suppose, in my eyes.
Yeah, I don't tend to pre-organize my performance much. I don't know what's going to happen. As an audience member, I guess because I've been doing this so long, it's pretty obvious to me when I feel like I'm watching someone who's been looking at their facial expressions in the mirror. And I don't think that's interesting, because that's not how life works, really. So I just try to be present. I try and set up the circumstances for myself, and the identity of the person, for sure. But I mean, that was one of the advantages of doing that scene the way we did it, is that we really were able to get lost in it. The most challenging aspect for me in film really isn't long scenes. I love long scenes. The hard scenes for me are when it's like 1/8 of a page and says, he scratches his nose, like, because it's just so quick, and you don't get to forget what's happening. I like to forget that I'm acting or shooting a movie or any of that.
And how does that sort of work in terms of rehearsals and maybe like script read-throughs and discussions? Like, Do you like to not overwork things or over discuss in advance? It sounds like you're very good at sort of staying open and working with things on the day.
I mean, if it's up to me, we shoot the first take every time, rehearse, I like this thing that I've heard Clint Eastwood does where a lot of times he'll shoot the rehearsal without telling the actors and then he'll just move on. Like, yeah, that's pretty smart. It's pretty smart.
Mm.
Yeah. If you've done your preparation, then I think you're better off not. A lot of times, I feel like when people are standing around talking about stuff before they roll on something, they're just stalling for time, because they're scared and they want to be less scared. And I like being scared.
It's something to use, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, life's terrifying, isn't it?
Definitely.
So, I mean, I hear you come from a theatre background. So does that play into something like a court case scene, longer takes? Is that somewhere you feel more comfortable, as you mentioned? Not so.
Yeah, I'd like to do one of those crazy movies where it's all just one take. Or what was that show they just had with Stephen Graham?
Adolescence.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd be down for something like that for sure. I would be down for that, but nobody's brought it to me yet.
You might have a load of indie directors
we're
trying to get you after listening to this podcast.
I'll have 100 offers for one take.
That'd be amazing.
It's funny you should say. I've actually just had this. I've written it for you, Michael.
Yeah.
Were there any scenes in this movie, particularly Nuremberg, where I don't know, there were some challenges for you, and it could be from a production point of view, or it could be from the character, or maybe just the being in the film and scheduling and that kind of thing. Is there anything that sort of sprung to mind? It could be on this, or it could be another movie, like challenges that you've maybe had on in the past.
Oh, yeah. Well, sometimes you're trying to do more than one project at the same time, or going back and forth between things. I remember when it was very early in Boardwalk Empire, and then I got the part of Kim Fowley in The Runaways, and I was going back and forth between Nelson Van Alden and Kim Fowley, which was a very weird thing to do. I mean, they're pretty different people, and I remember I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for The Runaways, and I went out there for my first day of shooting, and I had my Nelson Van Alden haircut, and I'm like, well, that won't do. That's Kim Fowley. That's not what his hair looked like. But I hadn't had time to have a wig fitting, so the head makeup artist had a box of wigs, and she said, well, we'll just see if one of these fits. So she was going through and like shoving them on my head, but I have a very large head, so she wasn't having much luck. So they found the biggest one, and she put like 100 not safety pins, what I'm talking about, bobby pins in it to hold it down, and I looked ridiculous, and I walked on the set, and they literally said, well, we'll just light it very low and hope for the best. I was like, that's so reassuring. I feel fantastic. This is going to be wonderful. But it actually did wind up being a lot of fun. And eventually I got a wig that fit.
Amazing. Just talking about maybe Boardwalk and Jeff Nichols, they're some of my favorite performances of yours. Is there anything maybe working with those, working with the show or with Jeff himself that you've maybe taken on in your work, or that's altered how you work, or something interesting you can say about those experiences?
Yeah, I love working with Jeff. I love it to smithereens. I don't know. I don't know really how to put into words what you learn from working with somebody. When I made my first movie with Jeff, which was Shotgun Stories, which I just heard yesterday was 21 years ago.
Wow.
Which just blew my mind. Jeff was just out of film school, and I had already been doing this for a while. So he and everyone else in the cast were, I hate this term, but they were non-actors or just, they were people, whatever. So I was the acting representative on set. You know, Jeff would come up and say, is this acting okay? And I'm like, yeah, Jeff, it's fine. You know, the whole thing was a little awkward, but, and, you know, it's been interesting to watch Jeff get more comfortable working with actors, from film to film. And now he's, quite comfortable with it, but, yeah. What you learn, I don't know. It's so much of this work to me is so subconscious. It's not something
undefinable. Yeah, I'm
not like, oh, today I did this, and oh, maybe I should do it again on Friday. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's spirits, it's ghosts, it's very ephemeral. And it's odd when you do press for something and you revisit something that at the time you were making it, it was your whole world. It was all you thought about. And then you come back a year or so later and you're like, what are these people talking about?
It's been a minute.
I don't know what to say. But it's just, that's the way it works. It moves through you. It's not something that you necessarily...
Yeah. It's difficult to intellectualize a feeling, isn't it?
I think the best acting is, you know, it is instinct. You're in the moment, so you shouldn't be necessarily overthinking everything. I had a question, actually. You've had your directorial debut
I did.
I mean, was this your first feature?
It was the first feature film I'd ever directed, Eric LaRue. Yeah.
Yes, Eric LaRue. So has that informed your process as an actor, or has it just given you a different perspective on the entire makeup of the filmmaking process, and you're part of that as an actor?
Yeah, I guess, you know, the one thing you realize when you're trying to make a film yourself, it's easy when you're acting in a film and the director comes up and they're saying, okay, that was good, but you think about this or that, and you're like, what? It wasn't perfect? I thought it was perfect. Oh no, they don't like it. And to be very, you know, fragile or whatever. But I think when you realize when you're directing, it's like, no, everything's beautiful. I'm just looking for choices, or, you know, I just want to make sure we leave no stone unturned while we're here. And so, finding a way to communicate with actors where they don't feel, you know, threatened by you asking for a different possibility or outcome or choice or whatever, and just realizing, I think it makes you a little less fragile at the end of the day. You see, when you direct, you see every aspect of filmmaking, like all of it, in a way that you don't when you're an actor. So
do you have any examples of direction that's either been good or bad off the top of your head? Something
that I've received?
Yeah.
Well, I try to avoid like qualitative adjectives. You know, it's just all what it is. I mean, people are who they are, and they. But people have said strange things, things that I thought were funny. You know, like one director once said, "I just want you to do something I can put in the movie." I thought that was pretty. I thought that was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty clever. Or once I did a take for Werner Herzog, and he came in afterwards and he said, "That was quite lame." I like that one. That was quite lame.
I think we've got to pretty much wrap up. Any last questions, Conor?
I suppose a lot of actors, again, will be hanging on your every word. You know, you're an actor. You know, I went to drama school. Everyone would
Where'd you go?
I went to somewhere called Arts Ed.
Arts Ed, okay.
It's in London. And I think a lot of actors right now are struggling, and they're going through a tough time. They haven't necessarily been working too much in recent times. Have you got any advice just navigating the hard times in the industry?
Oh, well, that makes me sad.
But we all came from somewhere. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of hope as well. I think
Hope,
it's
yeah,
it's because there must have been a point in your career where you weren't getting loads of roles coming through. You were sort of a bit more starting out. You were like, okay, should I be in this? Am I going to get that big break?
Yeah, right. So like right before I got Revolutionary Road, I was actually in a bit of a dry spell. I hadn't worked for a while, and actually found out they were making that movie in the newspaper. It wasn't like the agent called me and said, I saw it in the newspaper. I was like, oh my God, they're making a movie out of this book. I love this book. And I called my representation. I said, please, dear, please get me in any part. I don't care. I just love this book so much. And they managed to get me in. But yeah, I've had dry spells for sure. But I don't know. People ask me for advice. I always think, well, I'm not sure you want to do it the way I did it, because the way I did it for a long time was not financially solvent. I mean, I just kept acting because I literally couldn't do anything else. It was the only thing I'm reluctant to say that I knew how to do, but of all the things one could do, it was the thing I seemed to know the most about. And I just kept doing it no matter what. Even when nobody necessarily wanted to see me do it, I just did it anyway. It's really got to be, an obsession.
Yeah. Can't be a choice.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. And it's not a hobby. Yeah.
And also, I think people can take from that you took some action. You took things into your own hands to an extent. You saw the role. You picked up the phone to your agent.
Yeah. When I was in Chicago, when I started out, I did a lot of non-union theater, and I would start little theater companies, produce plays and coffee houses and things like that. And I was just always doing something, no matter what. Just didn't stop.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Michael. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks,
you.
Conor.
Thank you.
Nice
Appreciate
to
it.
meet you.
Keep enjoying watching your movies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Very great to meet you.
Well, there we have it. Thank you so much for listening to this week's Filmmakers Podcast. Remember, if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well, it is your duty to send the elevator back down. We will see you next Tuesday, as always. Thank you for listening. Take care.